Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Catherine. I am inviting you to follow along with me today to create this card that I'm calling Forbidden Secrets. Before we start talking about the supplies you'll need to make this card, I want to ask you to please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up so that helps it be seen by more people. And if you really like my content, then please share with all your stampy, crafty friends. All right, here are the supplies we'll be using. To start with, I'm going to use a piece of 7x7 multifarious cardstock. I do like to mat my cardstock in black because I really think that brings the colors all together. And I typically will cut that to 7 1/4 by 7 1/4 so that I have a 1/8 inch border all the way around my main image. And then my 8x8 card base is cut down from a piece of 11x17 card stock to make the 8x8. Okay, in addition to that, I thought today would be fun to pull out some things that I have not used in some time. So I went ahead and pulled out my squarely gel plate. Now, if you have a gel plate from another company or brand, then you go right ahead and use that. I also have an acrylic board that was made to fit the squarely. However, the squarely does come with 2 pieces of acetate, so the stamping board is not completely necessary. It just makes it a little bit easier to line it up on my cardstock. I will be using the Lavinia Hill masks. I like to use the bigger one for this project, although sometimes on smaller cards I use the mini ones and I just keep them together. It makes them easier to find. For stamps, I used Esme, Arwen, and Prue from a recent, I think this was last year's Halloween release. I also have the Flitter Mice, the Forbidden Secrets, the Fairy Web, and the Bugs. You want to glue your project together. I have Bippity Boppity glue that I keep in these bottles that came with my glue press, but I did not use that today. Just use the glue. For Elements inks, I have Midnight Blue, Flying Fig, Violet Chalk, and I did bring in some Lemon Drop, but in the end you ended up not being able to see it, so if you don't have the Lemon Drop, don't worry about it. It's not necessary for this project. My VersaFine Clair inks are Morning Mist, Nocturne, and Wisteria Purple. I also used my Titanium White Pan Pastels. You're going to want to have a brayer for your gel plate. Now, if you don't have this, this is a harder rubber one, but if you still have the soft foam, which is an older style, that will work too. I have a sprayer or some water, just in case I need to rinse anything out. For a little sparkle, I did use some Stickles in lavender, and this is my Wink of Stella pen, and I can hear my puppy having a little meltdown downstairs. She's very excited, so I hope she's not upsetting your dogs at home. We have our Posca pens in violet and in gray just to add a little splatter at the ends. I did use a Sharpie to help draw the web from my spider, and I used a pastel pencil to add a little highlighting and detailing, and then of course a small brush to go around my moon mask, which you'll want a moon mask for this project as well, and then a brush for my pan pastels. All right, let me pull this all together and get started. And just a reminder, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that bell. All right, let's get started. I'm going to begin by inking up the gel plate in Midnight Blue. So I'm just using my brayer, get that brayer inked up, and then we'll go across the gel plate a few times just to lay down some base color. And then you can clean your brayer off just by rolling it over your scrap paper. There we go. All right, it's a little warm, so let's make sure we keep those ink pads covered. All right, let's pull out some Violet Chalk, and I'm just going to smush this onto my blending mat. And I'm going to add some Flying Fig. Something there. All right. Gonna need a jar of water for this and your fan brush. I'm gonna give this a little squirt, and we're gonna make it a nice wet ink here. All right, so let's give it lots of splatter. And I'm going to do the violet chalk all over. When we get to the flying fig, let's keep it towards the edges as best as you can. And you know, I'm kind of thinking maybe a little bit of yellow wouldn't hurt, so I'm going to pull out a yellow ink pad. Let's see, and we'll go with the lemon drop. Let's not contaminate that lemon with much purple, so all right, and we're just going to repeat the process with the lemon drop. And for this one, I'm just going to get lots of splatter all over. I'm not even sure how much we'll see that because I haven't done a sample yet. So let's see where we're at. All right. I'm going to use a piece of 7x7 multivarious cardstock. You could also use a watercolor piece, and we're going with a square card today because that's what fits the squarely best. All right, I'll just center it right over that as best we can. And you can push it down and see how the ink moves around underneath it. Let's pull it up and see what we got. Spooky. I think we need some witches for this one. Let's clean up real quick. I'm just going to put these to the side because I may want to bring them back later and use them again. We'll move this over. Like this down. Actually, I have a piece of cardstock already cut out for a 5x7 card, and why waste this wonderful ink? So I'm just going to smush this down and put it aside to dry, and we'll use it for something else later on. All right, let's bring this back and dry it off. I'm going to pull out my Halloween stamps. Somewhere I misplaced Luca last week, so I'm keeping my eyes open for him. Now, we haven't used these two in quite some time, and this is Arwen and Esme. And I feel like there might be another one that goes with that set. So, oh, yep, there she is. All right, let's take a peek and see if we can fit them all in. Looks like they will all fit on there, and actually if we need to go outside that little square just a touch, I think that's going to be fine. Let's go ahead and put them on blocks. My stamps are already unblocked, so I am going to use some VersaFine Clear Nocturne to stamp my witches. And I think we're going to start with this one, which I think is Prue. And I'm going to put her to the left, and we're just going to go right across the page. So I'm just going to press it down and make sure it soaks into that background. And if we need to touch it up, we can come back and touch her up a little bit later. She's not looking too bad. Okay, and I do like to clean my stamps right away. I was able to find these chamois on Amazon, so they were pretty inexpensive. And they're just very soft and flexible, and it's a nice way to keep your polymer stamps clean. So we're going to clean her off and tuck her aside. And next, let's come in with, I think this one is Esme. And let's ink up Esme. She'll go in the middle. She looks like the older crone to me, just by the way she's kind of standing, and I don't know, it's just how she comes across to me. So I'm gonna just kind of eye it out and place her right in the middle like so. Once again, just giving it a really good press. Let the ink soak in. Let's see how we did here. Okay, not too bad. And clean her off and put her right away. Then we won't have that problem with a missing stamp, like the one I'm going to be probably looking for the rest of my life. All right, and then the last one is Arwen. So once again, just inking her up in VersaFine Clear Nocturne. And we'll just set her right over to the right side of our image. It's okay if they go outside the edge just a little bit. Give it a good press. And pull that up. Okay. Clean her off and put her away. Now I do have these chamois. I just keep them in an old recyclable margarine, or I don't know if it was cream cheese or what it was, but it's just an old tub. And I put them in here while I'm using them. It kind of helps them to stay damp so that I am able to use them. And then when I'm done, I just simply lay them out to dry so they don't get smelly. All right, so there we go. So we've got them all set. I'm going to bring back in a circle mask, and let's just make a little bit of moonlight. And this looks like a good area for that to me. So I'm going to bring back a number 9 blending brush, and I think maybe I'll go with the Flying Fig. So we're just going to ink it up a little bit. You can blend it off in your lid, take off any extra onto your scrap paper, and then I'm going to swap out that brush for a smaller. This is the number 3 brush by Lavinia, and that will help me actually stay along the edge of that stencil just a little bit better. So we'll start in the middle, just bring it off over the edge. there we go. There's our moonlights. Let's use some pan pastels to lighten up that moon just a little bit in the center. So I'm going to come back with a titanium white, and I have a brush dedicated to my white, so we'll use that. Just lighten it up a little bit in the middle. Being careful not to get the pan pastels onto our dark witches. This will just brighten it up a little bit. Okay, there we are with that. I think at this point we need a spooky spider web. I'm going to put it up in the other corner opposite the moon. So let's put that there. You know, let's do that in purple. How about a little purple? Maybe this, which one is this? This is Very Perry. Let's see what that looks like. I didn't start this with much of a plan today. I just figured I'd go with it and have fun with my stamps. All right, that's the Very Perry. I'm going to try this newer one that I got, which is Wisteria Purple. Let's see how that works out. Yeah, I think I like the Wisteria Purple. Looks like I got a little bit on there. Let's go ahead and stick with that one. And we'll just cover up that little area with the rest of this spider web, and hopefully it won't be too noticeable. Okay, there we go. I think that's good. All right, let's clean off our stamp once again. And I'm going to come back with a little spider. I have this set of bugs. Oh, that's what it's called, bugs. And I think I'm going to use the spider right here and just have them kind of dangling down from that web. And I think he should maybe be upside down like that. All right, let's take care of that. We'll use the Nocturne for that. So once again, just inking it up really well. Just give it a minute to soak in right there. And remember, if you're new to stamping, you never want to rock your stamps, because that's how you get some transfer of ink, maybe from the edge of your stamp. If you get some here along the edge, it'll transfer to your card. So if you just hold it straight down and give it a minute for that ink to soak in, you should be good to go. I'm going to bring in a hell mask to ground my witches. So let's see what we've got here. I like this one that's kind of flattish. I'm going to put it just above the witches, and then we're going to use our, let's see, some Midnight Blue. Is that what I've got? That's what I've got out. I'm going to use the Midnight Blue just to ground them. So I'm going to come back in with another one of my number 3 brushes. Actually, I think this one will be fine. And I just have a few of those, and I try to keep them with their little color families. So if you just go along the edge of your stencil or your mask, you should get a nice line across the ground. And then you can lift it up to look and see if you need to add more, but I'm pretty happy with that. And it looks like I went a little off the edge of my card, so let's even that out and do a little on this side. And again, not really worrying too much if I go outside that square. We're going to add a little detail to that at the end. Now I'm going to come in with a Sharpie. I actually do have a one of these Micron archival ink fine line markers, but I think it's about to be need to be replaced. So instead of using that, I'm just going to go with the Sharpie because I know I haven't used that very much and it should work. So all I'm going to do is draw a line from the bottom of my spider right up to about the center of that web. Okay, now what I want to do is add a little detail around my gel plate, or the image of my gel plate. So I'm just going to draw, and I don't even want it to be perfectly straight. Let's just go ahead and frame that out with our Sharpie. And we'll come right around. And you can even skip a few places if you want. We don't want this to be perfect. So right around here. And there we go. And you can add a few little dashes if you need to. Something to just, you know, finish that off. So there we go. This is where my teacher poster making skills come into play. All right, let's add some bats to the corner. Now I'm waiting for the cluster of bats. I did order it and I don't have it yet, so we'll definitely be making more Halloween cards before the end of this season. But for now, I'm going to use these flitter mice because these are the bats that I have. And I think what I'm going to do is use a block that's going to go mostly across that. And let's put all 3 bats together. You know, actually, I think maybe this one is a little bigger. Or maybe we'll go with it. So I'm just going to line it right up to that line that I drew. And let's make sure he's kind of straight. All right. And then we can do the medium-sized one. And I think what I'm going to do is save the smallest one to go closest to that spider. Just like the way that's going to look. Okay, so there we go. And I'm going to just pick them up with my block. Actually, I messed that up. Let's fix that. Let's try to line it up to the top of my card so that when I placed it back down, they would all be exactly where I want them. But as you know, might have noticed that last one didn't really grab. So there we go. All right, and let's go ahead and ink that with our Nocturne ink. And I'm gonna pick it up so I don't drop it on my card. Have you ever had that happen where you either drop your stamp after it's been inked, or God forbid your ink pad, and now you're really in a place where you need to start over? So let's try to avoid that. And I think I'm even going to move it over a little more than I originally planned. All right, now if I don't get it right on these lines that I've drawn, that's okay, because I can come back and just touch up their little feet if I need to. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's clean off our bats, and then I'm going to bring in some Wink of Stella to add some shimmer to the moonlight. So here's my clear Wink of Stella. Sometimes when these run out, I will refill them with alcohol, but it does make it a little more runny. So I like to know which one is my new one, and I just kind of write the date on the end. Just a little helpful hint for you. All right, and let's see, we're going to add some sparkle here. Just inside that moon. I'll do some at the top and a little at the bottom. You can see that. Okay. All right, let's put that away. And I lost my lid. All right, we'll find it later. Let's come back with some, here we go. I'm going to use my lavender stickles just to outline the edge of my spider web. And maybe I'll even add a little bit to the edge of my moon. So you just want to get it flowing. We'll just do the little lines that come out from the center. Trying not to get it too thick. But I think for Halloween designs, we do need a little bit of sparkle and Halloween colors. And then I'll just do the edge. All right, let's let that dry and we'll come back and finish our card. Oh, I almost forgot. I did want to add some to the edge here. So what I'm going to do is actually use an old paintbrush. Let's see. I have some here. Sometimes I use these for masking fluid, so I think this will be a good one to use. Just going to add a little water to it. Get it ready to go. And let's go ahead and use a little bit of stickles, and we're just going to paint it in there and then wash off that brush. I'm just going to go around the outside. My moon with it. Just a little bit more down here. All right, let's dry that off. As I was drying that, I did notice that I missed a couple of spots on the spider web, so I did go ahead and touch those up off camera, but they are still wet. And while they dry, I'm going to come back with the Forbidden Secrets, which is just kind of a fun little spooky poem. And let's put that on a block. And we're going to use, let's see, I think I'm going to use the Morning Mist, and we'll just stick with that theme of purples and blacks and grays. Just ink this up, and we're going to do some, yeah, I think I'm going to do some second generation stamping down the side of my card. Just ink it up again. And that almost went on upside down. Okay, and one more. And there we go. Now I'm looking at my design and thinking what I can add just to finish it up, and I think I'm going to add a little bit of flying fig right to the center of my moon. So we don't need very much of that. We'll just pick it right up off the lid and just give it a little dry brush in a few areas just to give it a little bit of shadow. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. And now I have my pastel pencil in white, and I'm going to just add, once again, being careful not to smudge that stickles that might still be drying. Let's go ahead and just add a little bit of highlighting. And I always say I'm not very good at this, but you know, I do know that practice makes perfect. So also have a sponge to kind of blend it out if I don't like how it looks, or if it's just a little too bold. Just grab a little makeup sponge or whatever tools you like to use that you have in your craft room and just blend it out. And get this meeting at the center. Here. And it's not so bright. Then we'll do the edge of their hats. All right, and there's that. I think I'm going to add a little splatter across my card just to finish it, and I'm going to use purple. This is the violets, and I don't have a black Posca pen. I think that would look really nice, but since I don't, let's go ahead and go with the gray. So we're just gonna prime them up by giving them a good little shake. Okay. And I will use my brush to help me splatter this across my card. Okay, there's our purple. And let's come back in with some gray. That one was ready. I'll just add a little gray. If you get a lot of paint, maybe don't tap so hard, you'll avoid those giant splotches. But overall, I think that looks okay. All right, let's give it some more time to dry and we'll put it all together. So our card is dry to the touch and it's ready to assemble. I have a piece of 11 by 17 inch cardstock that I have cut down into 8 by 16 inches and folded in half to make an 8 by 8 card base. And then I like to use black cardstock cut down to 7 1/4 by 7 1/4 to match whatever project I'm working on. On occasion, I do use some bright colors, but this really is my go-to because I like the way it just kind of brings our eye into the focal point and accentuates the colors. So at this point, all I need to do is just glue down my topper, and my card is ready to go. All right, and there we have it, all finished. Thanks for coming today. See you soon.